Welcome to the Geek Fix podcast right here on Thinking Critical Patreon. Although we do have one story that will go up on YouTube, and with me as always is my good friend Aaron, fresh from a visit to Jersey. Sounds like you had a good time.
I did. I had an absolute blast. Legions Con is just an amazing convention. It's all about the Mythic Legions, toy line from the Four Horsemen. And it's just the best fandom out there. Like, everybody is like really supportive. I mean, even go to the groups that are like, the Facebook group, like the Mythic Legions Cabal. Shout out, guys. You go to those groups and like nobody's fighting. It's not like your typical fandom group where people are in there arguing about the most, ridiculous minutia. Everybody in there is like super cool. Everybody's glad to be at that show. I had an absolute blast.
Very nice. There was a fandom that used to be united, not really all that divided, but that has changed very much. We are on the latest big debacle of the MCU, probably the biggest one so far. The Marvels opening at less than $50 million, barely over $100 million worldwide on like a $300 million budget. But not all as well. That's not all the bad news. It seems like Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios can't catch a break this week.
No, it's pretty grim. I'm sure Kevin walked into the office on Monday and is not having a good week.
Yeah, because nothing's really working on Disney Plus except for one thing, and that's Loki. And even season 2's numbers aren't as good as season 1. But that's about to change, Aaron. Say goodbye to Tom Hiddleston in the MCU, as the actor might be done playing Loki, which means no Loki season 3 or Thor 5. Loki is by far the best Marvel series on Disney Plus, and people hope Kevin Feige would be able to keep the creative team around to continue with new projects in an MCU that is currently decimated by a lack of quality writing and is desperate for visionary creators. Tom Hiddleston appeared on The Tonight Show on Friday and said Loki season 2 was the conclusion to 14 years of my life, and was asked about Deadpool 3, Avengers Secret War, and even Iron Man. So Tom Hiddleston, one of the few real guys associated with the original MCU left, really the breakout villain that they had besides Thanos, is wrapped it up. He's called it a day, and he's not going to do Loki anymore.
It's kind of ending with a whimper, isn't it? It's Loki's the best Disney Plus show, the best Marvel Disney Plus show. What a low bar. Like, just what an absolutely low bar considering how, terrible everything else has been. It's really sad to see him go out this way. And in my head canon, he went out in Infinity War when Thanos broke his neck, because just everything since then has been pointless and, ridiculous and just completely ruined the character, which seems to be what they do. Unfortunately, if you didn't get out, right there, when Endgame hit, your character is destroyed.
With this death in Endgame, it was probably the perfect ending for the character. I don't blame Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios for wanting to bring Tom Hiddleston back as Loki and make a TV show out of it. Certainly one of the breakout stars. I don't think they ever envisioned Loki getting over quite like he did. But that was a fantastic death. That was a great endpoint. Yes, he is the mischievous one, the one that was always turning on his brother. But in the end, he had his brother's back and really had basically a hero's death, almost like a Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm. It was a good way to go out. And then, they had to do a Disney Plus show where he's getting slapped around and made to look like a goofball. It's like another example of you either die the hero or you live long enough to become the villain. In the MCU, it's you either die the hero or you live long enough to be replaced by a woman.
That's kind of what happened. Sylvia. What is just a stupid concept? I don't even know what they were thinking. I had high hopes for Loki season 1. We reviewed it here on the channel with our late friend Skip and Tosh, who I miss dearly. But there were a few high moments in there, but it really isn't the way to go out, because he went out on a high note with Endgame. But that's a huge loss, and it's one more person that's associated with something that just isn't there anymore, and that's a competent MCU that everyone really seemed to love.
It's a depressing end. Just seeing everything kind of fall apart, seeing the Kevin Feige kind of exposed as the emperor with no clothes, has been really eye-opening in phases 4 and 5. What a disappointing end to Loki's character, to, just the MCU in general. I think if everybody just kind of sets it in their mind that Endgame was the last film, with a little, afterward of maybe No Way Home and Guardians 3, I think we're fine. Just forget everything else happened.
Well, they are supposed to be replacing Captain America, Steve Rogers, obviously, with Falcon. That has not gone well. We watched Falcon Winter Soldier. We also reviewed that with Skip and Tosh as well. And, that wasn't the last straw. I guess maybe Loki was, but you could see the Disney Plus wasn't going very well. But if you saw what Anthony Mackie was, I don't know, I'm assuming forced to do as Falcon Cap, in that series. It was not a good start. He just did not sound like himself anymore. And Jeff Snyder, via the hot mic, offers Captain America Brave New World received negative test scores and didn't do well in test screenings. Snyder also says 3 major sequences will be cut from the movie and that reshoots will happen for 5 months from January 2024 to May of 2024. So as a result, Captain America Brave New World being in such a state of disaster, just like the rest of the MCU, the release date has been moved back until February of 2025. And obviously, we saw a lot of things getting shuffled because, the actor strike is over. The writer's strike has been over for quite some time. But if that was going to be the blueprint of Anthony Mackie trying to portray Falcon Cap, like, oh my goodness, what a terrible decision there. And they made him completely unlikable in one interaction.
Yeah, it was really a disservice to him and the character that he built up over time, because Falcon was a really likable character. Like, you were on his side from kind of the moment he was introduced, and Anthony Mackie has a certain level of charm. I don't know if he's got leading man charm. I think pushing him into the leading man role is risky. But he was really great in the role. People liked him, and then they made him completely unlikable in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And that last scene at the end where he's just like, "You need to do better, Senator. You need to step up." It's like, oh, what are we supposed to do? I just told you, do better. It's like, what a great, you came with great solutions. It's just that whole just set up the fact that they glorified the terrorist and tried to make the terrorist sympathetic. The best part of that show was when she tells John Walker, I didn't mean to kill your friend. It's not my intention to kill anybody who doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, cut her head off with the shield. Cut her head off with the makeshift shield. Do it, John Walker. Go. You are now the hero of this show.
And obviously, Falcon Cap is another iteration of all new, all different Marvel, which we've seen with, obviously Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. We've seen, Miss Marvel come onto the big screen. Obviously, that was an enormous flop. And I don't understand why they keep mining something that was so tremendously unsuccessful, in comic books themselves. I think comic book readers as a whole can tell you and to decipher what's good and what isn't. And I don't know anybody, for the most part, that ever thought that Falcon Cap was a good idea.
No, if you had somebody with creative vision, like, if they had not screwed over James Gunn by, jumping the gun, and when some tweets came to light where he was making some jokes, some off-color jokes back in the day, and they hadn't jumped the gun and fired him for that, when they've let other actors and actresses get away with far worse. People within their company have done far worse than a few edgy tweets from back in the day when Chris Hansen was on television. If they hadn't jumped the gun and you had him in there continuing to guiding the cosmic side of this, we might have gotten a really good Phase 4 and Phase 5, because James Gunn does have a talent. No matter what you think of the individual films that he does have a talent for bringing characters and like reworking them and making you like them. So maybe if he was in charge, he could have done some things with Kamala Khan that made her more accessible to the audience. He could have done some things with Carol Danvers, in his outlines that they could have played off of. But instead, you've just got a hodgepodge of different directors that were cast for their surface traits, it seems. And then, the genius of Kevin Feige, as we read in the excerpts from that book, is that he can cobble things together at the end. That's not a genius move in Hollywood. A genius move would be mapping everything out and doing it right the first time, not taking a big pile of shit. You mean
phases 1 through 3?
Yeah, exactly. Not taking a big pile of shit and going, okay, well, how can I rearrange this so that it looks palatable? It's a bad way to go. It's an expensive way to go, and they are suffering for it.
I read this article, or this little excerpt about Captain America Brave New World, and I was like, well, I wonder who the director is. Maybe they made a good choice. Maybe they made a bad choice. I went and looked him up, and he's made 3 movies prior to this, and one of them was like the Cloverfield paradox. It's like, why are you giving somebody a $250 million budget movie that's never made anything good? Like, the Cloverfield paradox was an absolute travesty against Cloverfield.
Because he's cheap, probably?
I think it's because he's Nigerian.
Well, that's probably right, too. They could say the first Nigerian director for a Marvel film. As if anybody cares about that who goes and spends money at the movies. I've never, I've seen this argument online, you saw Heather Antos was out there retweeting this Jessie Gender account on Twitter saying that we women kept these fandoms alive when they were dormant, and you guys can't even be bothered to go see a movie with 3 female leads, 2 of them women of color. Basically the same old tired, bigot, sexist, etc. argument. I have no problem going and seeing a movie with female leads. I have no problem going and seeing a movie with multi-ethnic female leads. I have no
Aaron,
problems with
why are you even entertaining the argument there? Half of the entire world are women. If all women supported the movie, it would have been very successful. They didn't support it either. Blame your sisters on this one.
I know. They're saying that 65% of the audience was men. How much more are we supposed to do, ladies? 65% of the people that went were men. You know, that's
why you don't
sampling.
Entertain stupid arguments like that. There's like a billion holes in there just from the fucking sentence.
It's because it's all based on feeling. I feel this way, and therefore it is. And it's like it doesn't go along with the facts of the. You know, I said if you did a war, like I'm just now kind of getting into Warhammer. I've always kind of appreciated it from a distance. You know, just for the concepts and the designs. If you announced a Warhammer 40K movie and it had Max's seal of approval, you know, as like yes, this is being done right. And it had a bunch of multi-ethnic female leads, I'd go see it in a second. You know, yeah, show me the Sisters of Battle kicking ass. You know, like I've been to, like I watched the Resident Evil movies and most of those were terrible. And I went to all of them just because I was like, Mila Jovovich is cool, kicking ass. The Underworld movies, Kate Beckinsale, kicking ass. You know, I love Firefly and Serenity. Zoe Washburn, played by Gina Torres on, you know, she's freaking fantastic. There's all kinds of great female leads that men will go and see and watch kick ass. It just, you didn't deliver it with this. It didn't look interesting. And it kind of looked like, you know, a CW show. It looked really bad.
No, and you're going out there and mining the worst stuff. You can't just wish something into existence. You know, comic books are really a proof of concept. Should this thing move forward? Is it bound for bigger and better things? Every time they try to take one of these things that isn't a thing and make it a thing, it always blows up in their faces. Just look at like Naomi. Had one comic book series. I think the very first issue shipped like 18,000 comic books. A DC character first appearance was only ordered 18,000 comic books, was DOA the moment the comic book came out. And guess what? The show, no one cared. No one went and saw it. You actually have to go out there and pick the best characters with the best stories that people have actually responded to. You know, in the past, that's how you have a successful, vibrant, you know, shared comic book universe. You can't just like, I dream a genie it and all of a sudden it's successful.
Yeah, the fans will tell you what it is that they want. You don't get to tell the fans what they want. You don't get to tell them what they want, what they need. They decide that, and they decide that with their dollars. So when you keep giving them things that they've said we don't want, we don't need, and they don't show up with their dollars, you have no one to blame but yourself. It's not their fault. They told you loud and clear. You know, you thought the Marvels was going to be, you know, this blockbuster. You know, when you put it into production, you thought that people wanted it. All you had to do was look at the Captain Marvel merch sales. Yes, the movie made over $1 billion, but it was sandwiched between Endgame and Infinity War. People thought they had to go see it, and most people that saw it came out and were like, at best, were like, you know, it was all right. You thought that you could like replicate that, but if all you had to do was look at how popular the merch sales were for Captain Marvel, and they were non-existent. They did terrible. Everything went clearance. You can still go to the 99-cent only store by my house and find product from that first Captain Marvel movie, you know, just sitting there on the shelves. It's still at Five Below. You got to look at more than one thing, but the problem is they were so convinced that anything that had the Marvel logo on it was what mattered. It didn't matter what it was. As long as it said Marvel, people were going to flock to it. And they gambled on that, and they were wrong.
I was reading a bunch of articles obviously on this because there's so much coverage of the Marvels and everything happening at the MCU and Kevin Feige. And this is what an anonymous film producer said. Why not simply make Captain Marvel 2? Why produce the Marvels when your audience identified, empathized, and even hero identified with Brie Larson's character? More importantly, why offer people a similar or same character in stories that are on Disney Plus? If you expect them to go to a theater together, Disney Marvel diluted their product. Of course, a picture works or fails for other reasons too, but losing so much value picture over picture is rare and hard to do. It does feel like this is rare and hard to do. It's almost like what Kathleen Kennedy was able to do with Star Wars. Like, you almost think it's not fathomable that you could actually get to a place where they are just a few short years after Endgame, yet they've managed to destroy everything. And this anonymous film producer, I think, is a little bit off with their portrayal of Captain Marvel and people's, the audience's response to it. Let's just put it that way. But why not just make Captain Marvel 2? She made $1 billion. Obviously, they knew something was wrong. Maybe. I don't know. None of it made sense.
It seems like they were just like reacting to the negative press for Brie Larson, but I think that was, that was salvageable. Still, you could have done something. I mean, I don't think that movie could have sniffed $1 billion even if it had been good. That's just the current state of the MCU. Most people now, they've had so many bad experiences with the MCU that it's colored their perception, and people don't rush out. Only the most hardcore rush out for that first week, and I wouldn't be surprised if most of the people that were sitting in theaters were YouTubers just waiting to jump on and review it. It just seems like they've lost the general audience, and I think that it's not a female lead problem. It's not a racism problem. It's not a sexism problem. It's none of these things. It's a combination of factors. It's, a lot of bad product that has come out of the pipeline recently that has colored people's perceptions. A lot of people checked out after Endgame. You had to maintain them. You had to pull them back in. And for a large part, it seemed like most people were willing to give it a chance. Doctor Strange did well at the box office, but it wasn't a very good movie. And so you started to get diminishing returns after that.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania opened well. It
just died immediately because the hardcore went. Once you've seen Thor: Love and Thunder, you're just like, once you released that on the public, you had to understand that like most people are going to be like, I'm done with this, and that's exactly what's happened. And then the larger problem is that Disney is a tarnished brand. So Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, everything under their umbrella is suffering. And it's just the entire company has this negative connotation now because of the various, things that they've involved themselves in and just the way that they've conducted themselves and just the sheer unmitigated arrogance of each of the studio heads, that are running the show, all the way up to the CEO of the company. Just the absolute arrogance has turned people off. So, I don't see them being able to pull this up, at least not easily.
It's kind of weird when you used to remember the MCU being must see. When you're like, oh, we're going to do the Eternals and we're going to do Shang-Chi. It's like, there's nothing must see about this.
No.
Like, what are you guys doing? You used to pick, the best characters, or maybe you went and found a great director and said, what's your dream project? Oh, James Gunn, you want to do Guardians of the Galaxy? Let's take a chance. Or it wasn't Peyton Reed who was first going to do Ant-Man.
Edgar Wright,
Edgar Wright. That was a director-driven project. They made the project because they believed in the director. And I don't think they believe in anything anymore. It's certainly not quality. And it's like, once you put all those movies back to back and things, you're just like, whoa, there's nothing must-see about this. I don't want to see the Eternals again. There hopefully is no future for Shang-Chi because the character sucked.
If there was a genius to Kevin Feige, that genius has nothing to do with cobbling things together afterwards in the editing room. The genius of Kevin Feige, if there is such a thing, would be that he was able to assemble the right people and stand on the shoulders of giants and therefore look good, look like he was this creative genius that had shepherded in this thing that had never been done before. But the fact is, there were many people contributing to that. And now all those people are gone, and it's just him with a bunch of directors that he's just cast so that they can put out press releases saying the first this, the first that, because they really became convinced that that's why Black Panther was successful, because it was the first, black superhero, even though it wasn't. As far as films go, they really convinced themselves that that was what sold that movie. And that's why they, and then when Captain Marvel, the first one, did $1 billion, they were like, it's because we pushed the fact that she's female. They thought that that's what people were interested in. And it turns out that's not true. People are interested in Black Panther because he's a compelling and interesting character. And when he showed up in Civil War, he was awesome. And people were like, I want to know more about this character. There was no setup for Captain Marvel in that way. Nobody was really like, I need to know more about this character because she wasn't set up in a previous film. She just kind of like, oh, there's a pager with her symbol on it, but people thought they had to see it, so they went and saw it. And they didn't get attached to her. It's the same problem that WWE has when they like try to push a Roman Reigns as a face, and the fans are saying, no, we want him as a heel. He's an obvious heel. Don't do this. We don't care about him as a babyface. And they keep trying, and then eventually they have to give in, and that's where Marvel's at. Marvel is at the point of they've got to turn Roman Reigns heel, or they've just got to continue to lose business.
Yeah, it's kind of like good old Jim Ross. I was listening to a podcast and they're talking about Steve Austin and the fact that everyone were cheering him, even though Vince McMahon wanted him to be the big villain. And he said, in the end, the fans are always right. Sometimes you have to listen to them. Mm-hmm. Now, Aaron, this is actually the very first part of a big podcast. We're going to go for another hour and 40 minutes, talk a little bit more about the MCU. We got some stupid tweets of the week. We're going to talk about some toys, some comic book discussion. So this is just the beginning of a fantastic podcast exclusive over on the Thinking Critical Patreon and the Sparrow's Never Ending Christmas Tree tier. Is the tree up?
Not yet. Can't go up till after Thanksgiving.
Oh, but it'll be up till at least July 4th.
It'll be up at least through February, probably. That's usually the that's usually the point where it's like, all right, it's time to let this go.